Welcome to Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS, a powerful accounting and job costing software that is custom designed for custom home builders. And so who am I? My name is actually Carol King, and I don't sing, but I am the developer of Custom Home Builder Solutions, again also known as CHS. We are located in Texas, and I really love exploring the back roads of Texas, so I put a picture here of me in those Texas bluebonnets. But bottom line, my degree is in accounting, and I have years of experience working for and with home builders. Together with valuable input from those builders, we have come up with a way for me to give you the tools that I myself know so much about being an accountant, and the tools the builders taught me that they needed. So my main goal is really to give you and your staff peace of mind in your unique and very complex industry. So what is CHS all about? CHS is a complete and comprehensive accounting software that answers the unique job costing needs of custom home builders. Working together with custom home builders, we have developed the software the professional builder needs to create job budgets, change orders, purchase orders, and much more, to combine seamlessly with our full accounting features in order, most importantly, to monitor, manage, predict, and control your profits. So eliminate all of those spreadsheets that your staff has been creating. Stop doing double record keeping and relying upon spreadsheets to keep up with important and critical information for your business. Improve communication. Connect to the back office with the field by empowering your staff to have important information about job costs, scheduling, and the work done right at their fingertips. Do away with that generic accounting software and get the information that you need every day for your unique industry. CHS is a web-based software that is provided on a monthly subscription basis. You can see the amount of that subscription, the price for it, by clicking the price link on our website. So since it is web-based, all you need is a web browser, and CHS is instantly networked with your team in the office or in the field without installing any software or any of those updates. So step up to CHS. CHS is specifically designed for the professional home builder who realizes the high value of accountability for their future existence, reputation, and peace of mind. So if you will hang in there with me before you say, I already have accounting, I would really like to show you why you might not have the right accounting software for your unique industry. And I know, accounting might be the last thing that you want to stop and hear about, but it is the thing, I promise you, that can make or break your complex type of business. Believe me, I am only interested in your success, so stay with me and I will show you what makes CHS so special and why CHS builders tell me that other builders are always saying to them when they show them some CHS report, wow, how did you get that great report? I need that. Construction accounting is far more complex than most typical accounting. In fact, it is so different and so unique that one of the largest and most complex sections of the IRS tax code pertains solely to the construction industry. To succeed in the custom home building industry, I promise you, you will need construction-savvy accounting tools and people that know construction, not only for satisfying the IRS, but also for satisfying or impressing those bankers, investors, sophisticated home buyers, insurance auditors, and on and on. Those people who can make or break your business, in other words. And if you use a generic accounting software, I also promise you that your accounting team will end up spending hours every day entering data into the generic accounting software and then again into outside spreadsheets to handle all of your needs. I know all about that because I became a master at it. And you will end up paying too much for a CPA to gather the data needed to prepare that complex tax return. CHS will help you cut way down on those CPA fees by gathering and producing the financial reports by job that your CPA needs so that your CPA doesn't have to comb through all your records and do it themselves. But most importantly, CHS gives you the info you need every single day to monitor your profits and to manage your business. So let's just get started with one of the end results of using CHS, and let's talk about how CHS is handling those various complex situations. First of all, builders are not simply buying and selling some line of products, and they are not manufacturing the same widgets over and over again. Every single job is unique with different types of contracts. They can take many months to complete, and the end price and the estimated costs often change as you go. So this is just really fun for your accounting team. So I made it so that CHS instantly calculates the changing profit status by job based on contract type. And to produce this particular window on your owner dashboard, CHS has to be able to gather information, figure out what your current estimated costs at completion as versus your budget, and come up with where it is expecting your profit to be today and what the profit difference might be. So you can see that going on here, how it's done that. If you drill down on it, you can actually see the screen that is used when, after you do your budget or estimate, this screen is used to come up with the price. But you can drill down to see how that current revised price is changing from your original price. And you can see that CHS is being smart about what contract type this job is under. This one happens to be a cost plus builder fee. CHS has suggested up here, based on a desired gross profit percent that you enter, which is different than a markup percent, and I'll show you a tip about that in a minute so that you can understand that. But CHS comes up with some suggestions for if it's a fixed price, what the price might be, if it's a cost plus markup, what the markup percent might be, or what the builder fee might be for a cost plus builder fee based on this desired profit percent. In this case, it's a cost plus builder fee, so CHS shows you your original budget plus the fee minus the budget to come up with your original profit. And over here, to get your revised price, CHS is smart about what kind of contract this is. So it'll give you what your current estimated costs at completion are today, and we'll see what that ECC, as we refer to it, worksheet looks like that's coming up with those costs based on various cost centers. So, and then it adds in the builder fee, and then it actually adds in change order fees, not the prices that you give to the customer for change orders, but the portion of that that is the builder fee, since this is a cost plus builder fee. Comes up with the revised price, takes away that current estimated cost at completion, and gives you a revised profit percent and how much over or under your profit is heading. In this case, it's cost plus builder fee. So basically the difference usually is the change order fees, because you do collect all those costs and include that in the price. And a couple more of those. Here is one that is a cost plus markup. So based on the 20%, CHS suggested that you mark up everything by 25% to get that 20%. So that was entered. So it's figuring out the budget plus the markup, and then minus the budget to get your profit. And then it takes your current estimated cost at completion, adds the markup to it to get a revised price, and does the same sort of thing over here. This one is for a fixed price contract. So even though CHS suggested to get 20%, it's $356,000 something. The builder put in $360,000 for the price, so you can see that the original estimated profit percent is a little higher than that 20%. In this case, since it is a fixed price, CHS adds the total price of the change orders to the customer to the fixed price, and it knows to add, based on the contract, an allowance or options adjustment for getting that from the customers when they pick selections that are higher than the allowance that was given to them. So it does the same thing, takes the revised price minus the ECC and comes up with the profit difference. And this looks like it might be heading under what you originally estimated it might be. So that shows you how you can see the different contract types and how CHS knows about them. Takes care of that complexity. And here's a quick tip about gross profit percent versus markup percent, which often confuses some people. So I'll let you pause this and read this. I think it'll help you understand that a little better. Tips like this are all over CHS behind question mark buttons. So this is an example of one of those. And quickly, before we go on, I want to show you one more thing about how CHS is recognizing that contract type for a job, and that's on something called contract balance reports. This first one is for a cost plus fee, and these are really the most important near the end of the job when you're trying to figure out what the customer owes you, but they can be really interesting to know about as you progress to see how much balance might be due to you, because it is based on the estimated cost at completion, which when you're at the end of the job, you will be marking all actual costs as done with one click of a button, probably, and so the ECC is actually the same as your actual job costs that you incurred. But the main thing about this is that it takes away the revenues received from the customers, and it lists what those revenues received are. So you get a contract balance, and you can see that this is the same kind of calculation we looked at a minute ago for a cost plus fee. Here is one for a cost plus markup, so the calculation of the revised price is a little different. And here is one for the fixed contract one, adding in the change orders and allowance adjustments. So you can see how valuable that report is at your fingertips to know where you're at with that part of the job, what is due to you. Okay, another complexity is that there are laws about keeping monies received separate for each job. It's sort of a trust issue. This requires cash flow by job, and that can sometimes be kind of complex. I used to spend time trying to prove what the cash flow, how much cash was in and out for each job, so that we could look at where we're at with the money, basically. But also, because of that, if you have a software like CHS that will track it by track cash by job, means you might be able to eliminate having all those multiple checking accounts that you try to do that. So you can see here that CHS, on this other part of the owner review dashboard, CHS has figured out the cash flow balance for each job, and that means money's in, less money's out. Then it shows you how much open payables have been posted to pay for each job, and so how much cash is actually available. In this case, we're a little short, so I'll show you in just a second the draw requests that we need to do for that maybe. I just wanted to show you one other thing, that if you drill down, you can prove where that cash flow balance comes from. We also have great cash flow reports that show all the detail, but this is showing you how much has come in and out of each bank and each credit card for that job, and you can drill down on the monies received, the deposits, drill down on monies paid, the payables that have been paid, and stuff that's coming in from payroll and other areas. So that's a tool I really needed all the time. Another complexity solved. So here's, let's just do a draw request and talk about that for a minute and show you how you can stop spending weeks and weeks trying to come up with your billings for different kinds of contracts. So receiving money from customers is not handled like your everyday accounts receivable in other types of businesses. Yet another complexity. Periodically, builders draw money from their customers or their customers' lenders based on the progress of the job. Depending on the type of contract, and lender requirements, those draw requests can be based on percent complete, cost incurred plus a markup, cost incurred plus a percent of a builder fee, etc. So, of course, CHS takes care of this for you. In this cost plus builder fee job, paid and unpaid posted costs are immediately pulled in and a draw request is produced. But first of all, when you start a draw request on a cost plus job, it's going to show you a list of the costs that have been posted and not drawn yet. And you can unselect some of them if you're not ready to draw them yet. But let's sort of zoom in on this. First of all, I'd like to mention that the verbiage at the top of the draw request right here in this box is set up by you. You do not have to use this verbiage. So I think CHS provides this, but you can change it as needed for what you want at the top of the draw request. And if you zoom in down here, you'll see that CHS is showing you the total costs to date that have been posted, how much has been already included on prior draws, and how much is being included on this draw. And if we zoom to the end of the report, you'll see that it totals all that stuff up. And then just before you create this report, CHS will pop up a screen that will calculate the percent of the builder fee you might want to draw. You can either use that or you can type in your own amount to draw on this one. So it has a line for that, and then the grand totals of the draw. So it's just about almost as easy as the time it just took me to describe this, which is different than taking a week out to figure out all the billing for your draws. That's just one type of draw request. We won't go into all the others. It hopefully proves a point to you. Also, when you're done with it, you can see a list of the draws for that job that you've already done, and you can check mark that the draw has been received, and that will show up in places whether the draw has been funded or not for certain costs that are being approved to pay. Sometimes people do the draw request before they actually pay the costs. Also, you can drill down. If it's a cost plus, you might need to give the home buyer a list of the cost detail that is behind that draw of all your costs. So that might eliminate having to give them stack of bills. But if you need to give them stack of bills in CHS, you can upload, when you're entering the bills, a copy of the bill. And right here you can get a stitched together printout of the PDFs of those bills. So where you have to start, usually when you get a job, is you need to budget or estimate your job costs. Custom home builders, or remodelers really, don't simply meet a customer and then just give them some price for a product. A price in the custom home building industry involves getting bids from trades and suppliers, or estimating it yourself, or budgeting the job by all types of cost centers, negotiating a type of contract that we were talking about, and then giving the customer a proposal and then getting the job. So of course CHS has a budget worksheet to get this done. It is based on cost codes or cost centers that you can either set up by loading the recommended NAHB cost codes and editing and deleting them as needed, or by setting up your own from scratch if you like. You group these under group headings, like plumbing has 3 cost centers under it, framing materials 3 here for this builder. You can also start a budget with all of your cost code centers coming in that you set up on a cost code master. And then after a bit, you can have template budget worksheets to copy from. So after you've done your budget, you may use a tool to eliminate all the zero lines that you don't need for this particular job, which you can do in an instant. And then you might decide another new job is similar to that job, so you can copy the budget in. The quantities that come in based on living square feet and frame square feet, etc., will change to match the quantities that go with those for the job that you're about to do a budget on. So let's drill down just on a couple of those budget lines. Let's take a look at rough, top out, and final. You'll kind of notice that the builder is splitting those into thirds. And before I leave this, I'd like to point out that in those cost centers, you can attach them to stages of the job. You'll notice that plumbing is in 3 different stages. And I'm going to show you something about a great budget report for that, grouped by stages here in a second. If you hover over it, you can see the name of the stage. Builders usually set up, I don't know, maybe 13, 16 stages to attach their cost centers to. And that really helps them with scheduling also, by the way. So let's go take a look at rough plumbing. When I clicked on the line, this window opened, and very first of all, I'd like to point out that since you're connected to your accounting, it's all in one program, you can drill down to the cost code history for this particular cost center and see, select similar jobs and see the history of how much you budgeted and went over or under, and what the actual costs were and the averages of those actual costs. You can also request vendor bids in CHS. Here's a link to edit those vendor bids. You can post them and then edit them. You can do purchase orders from the bids. You can upload a copy of the bid, which might come on over to your budget file upload. You can see that here. And you can add a new purchase order also from this budget worksheet screen. What I wanted to point out on here, also you can set up items behind these cost centers. You can set up some to just bring in for each cost code, or you can add some while you're working on this budget. But I'd like to point out here that this builder is basing plumbing rough for his own estimate on the living square feet for this. So CHS dropped in the living square feet for the job. And you can set up, when you set up the job, you can set up as many specs as you like and the amounts for those specs. So that CHS, if this cost center is based on living square feet, would just drop in the living square feet or whatever else it's based on for you for the quantity. Also, the builder is splitting this into thirds, so put a quantity percent of 33.33 and a unit price. All of this might have dropped in from your master or from what you're copying from. Again, it will adjust for the job's specs. Even if you copy it, it'll adjust for this job spec. And the unit price might drop in. There is a place for internal notes that you can write and print reports with just the internal notes. Or there's a place to type buyer notes, and you can print budget proposals, etc. with just the buyer notes, not the internal notes. Or with both. Another thing that we're drilling down on for the cost center for the budget is the total appliance package, because I want to show you how CHS handles another complexity. And that complexity is that the contract might include an agreed upon amount for certain cost centers, and if the home buyer makes selections that go over or under those, the final contract price needs to be adjusted. So you mark the cost centers that are allowances with a unit measure of allowance. And this builder has put in a bunch of items behind what these appliances are, and you'll see that in just a second. But what I'd like to show you is this: you can click buttons in various places, and CHS handles the complexity again for you by taking the budgeted allowance, showing what your current estimated costs at completion are, and this will be the same, like I said, at the end of the job when you mark that all the actual costs are done. The estimated cost of completion would be the same as the actual costs. It's showing you the difference. If you tell it that you want to mark up your overages, your allowance overages, it'll have that here, and it will show you the allowance adjustments like you were seeing on those contract balance reports before. So there's that complexity handled. So let's take a look at a couple of the budget reports. I first of all want to mention that you can set up budget styles so that you select for different styles that might have a different title, might have a different header, and might have, let me get over here to this for a second, might have a different footer at the end of it. So in this case, he selected the style for construction budget. This thing that popped up here is me sort of zooming in on one of these budget lines. In this case, this builder asked for the budget report that has both the budget markup and marked up. If it was a fixed contract, you'd probably ask for the budget report that shows the marked up amount only and not the costs. He also asked for a report that shows both the internal and the buyer notes here. So the internal are in gray, buyer notes here, that kind of thing. So that gives you an idea of what that report is looking like. Let's look at a couple of others just so you see one with a different style that the builder selected that has a different title, different header, and perhaps something different on the footer. We won't look at the footer. I've now just brought up another budget report that is grouped, instead of by all these groups like permits and fees and architectural engineering, it's grouped by stage, and this is a great one for projecting or forecasting what you might be drawing when stages are getting ready to complete or before they're complete or whenever it is that you do that, but it's showing you about how much each stage's draw might be based on your budget. This is a cost plus builder fee one that we're looking at. So the bottom of the report is looking like this. Here's another one that shows those appliances and the fact that they entered a bunch of items by room and how much is for each item, etc. And you can print a budget report with all items. So let's move on to yet another complexity for custom home builders. It is that home buyers request changes to the original plans after the estimate is done and the contract is signed. So builders end up needing to estimate the cost of change orders, add in a price for the change orders, and then adjust the contract price for those. And change orders cause delays. So CHS has features to create change orders and to instantly open windows like this that list the change orders, the payments, and the balances due. So on this very top one here, you can see that we have 3 change orders for this job, and there's a totals line showing what the estimated cost is, which you will put in by cost type, down by cost center down here below. You'll put in the estimated costs and you'll come up with the fee or markup. You'll end up with the price and what the estimated profit is on that. And on this screen you can see how much payments have been received for those change orders and what the balance due is of those change orders. And if you drill down on one of the change orders, you will get a window that shows you the various cost codes that if you hover over them, you'll see the title of the cost codes on the real screen, what stage those are in, which you enter when you edit or add the new one, what stage might drop in based on the cost code, but you can change it if you need it to be a different place in your Gantt schedule actually, and how many delay days there are. These 2 things can really help with your scheduling. Then it shows your estimated cost for each one of those cost centers that you came up with, maybe from a bid or however you did that. You can also attach a copy of the bid, etc., to the change order record. Then you can either decide to mark it up by a certain percent or just type in a markup amount when you're entering it. It'll calculate the markup amount, or you can just type in a flat fee, or you could just type in the price and CHS figures out the fee. And so you see your change order price here too. So you see the detail of that. You can see that some comments or notes have been being made about this change order because there's a darkened in comments bubble there, by the way. So I wanted you to see the screens that you can see that show you about your change orders. And here's an example of one of the change orders that you can select from. First of all, again, I'd like to point out, just like the budget ones, you can set up various templates for change orders and select the template before you open it. So if you don't like the word change order and want something different at the top of the change orders for the customers, you can change that. You can also change the footer text that's underneath the detail about the cost of about the prices of the change order. So you can change all of this text and the title as you like, and then select which one you want to open. There are also several different styles of change orders, ones that shows the details of those cost lines, or one that just shows the grand total for the patio that I made up off of the family room, or some other things that you can select from there. You can also choose to either include the information about how it's affecting the original contract price or not. So let's get on to another big thing, a really big thing actually, in custom home building. Usually custom home builders are general contractors, meaning that they contract with all kinds of trades and suppliers to get the job done. So issuing purchase orders or work orders and then posting accounts payable in order to pay them requires constant communication basically from the field to the back office and the other way around even. You're monitoring for overages, monitoring for liability insurance expirations, etc. In other words, it is not just a matter of simply receiving a bill and posting and paying it as is. So let's start with those purchase orders or work orders if you prefer to call them that, or something else. You don't have to have those in CHS, but I'm going to prove to you that they are a great communication tool for communicating that the work is done and how much to pay from the field. So this screen, we won't get into it. It has a lot of stuff gathered together for you, but it is listing all the purchase orders that have been issued, the totals of those purchase orders, and because we're connected to accounting, how much of the posted job costs have been connected to that purchase order, and how much over or under the costs are from the PO. When you're entering the bill for this posted cost, it will warn you that you're going over, by the way. Let's take a quick look at this one that has a PO total, but no actual posted cost yet, so that you'll notice over here that the PO amount, open amount, is the same as the PO, and that you have a link here to create an accounts payable bill from this PO. I have several builders that are going sort of paperless and say we will be paying you based on your work done for a purchase order, and that's what the rest of this is about right here, where you can see a check mark down here. I can't seem to get my cursor to behave and come back. Let's see, a check mark down here where the field can check mark that the work is done. Also, they can write notes about the work, why it is done or why it's not done, that can be seen by clicking this button. They can also enter amount, by the way, to not pay right now but might pay later, so that this amount is a little less for whatever reason you type here, and when you do the create bill, it will be for that lower amount. I'll let you pause this to study on this screen, but I just wanted you to see that part. When you add a new purchase order or edit a purchase order, this is the screen that you'll be using, and I'm not going to go into great detail other than you can attach a copy of the bid, and quite often the notes say as per your attached bid, and when you click to email the PO, that attached bid will go with the purchase order printout itself to the vendor or trade or supplier that you selected. You can build items behind the POs that total up to the PO, so there's a list of the detail of the items that make up the PO. If you can create a PO, like I said, from the budget worksheet that has items. So those will get into this. But what I really wanted to point out by opening this is that you can have three types of purchase orders or work orders. One is budgeted, one is change order type of POs that you might be creating as you do those different costs for the change order. And you can have variance POs. And then you can set up variance PO reasons that are in a drop down here, like site condition, weather condition, estimating error, and you can set up those to select from, and you can get great reports of just your variance POs and the reasons for them. So that can be pretty handy in learning what to do next time, maybe about this type of cost. The other thing is that since we are connected to accounting and you can create a bill from a PO, you can also, if for some reason it's a variance and you want to back charge another trade or supplier, probably a trade or somebody, you can select that trade here and tell how much you want to back charge them, and then when you create a bill from it, CHS is going to end up basically, when you do a back charge attached to a bill, automatically creating a minus line that goes to that other vendor and can be deducted from bills that you're paying them. This real quickly is the screen that opens if you click to drill down to write notes about the work done. You can also put the work done here, write notes about it. You can take care of some additional dates for the PO, get the dates that you have inserted here from your schedule, and so on for this particular task if the task on the Gantt schedule is attached to a PO, which can be done in CHS. So here's a copy of the change order printout, and again, it is like the budget and the change orders. You can set up purchase order styles. So this one, you can have a work order style so that work order prints at the top here, and then you can control. This is also provided by CHS. It's listing the items and giving you the total of the purchase order, and you can control what's in the footer. This builder is quite extensive about what is in his footer, and you can pause this to take a look at it if you like for some ideas from this builder. You can sign the PO before you print it, so and you can keep a stored signature that gets signed. This builder uploaded his signature into his footer, so we have it twice. So You may want to take that away and make a stored signature that is printed down here. This stuff down here is printed by CHS after you finish all that footer stuff. So there's that. You can print them, email them, save the PDF, whatever you like to do with those. So, since we're talking about trades and suppliers, I do want to show you where you're entering job cost payables bills. And before you get excited about all these fields, I want you to know that we created this from a PO, and all these fields were filled in for us for various reasons, which I'll show you. But another complexity is that home builders need all kinds of information based on the job costs that have been entered into payables. So the window for entering bills is specifically designed to take care of entering that data only one time. This is what will eliminate all those spreadsheets, part of what will eliminate all those spreadsheets. It is not required to use purchase orders in CHS, but since we are, we simply use the feature to create bills from POs. And like I said, a lot of things dropped in for us because of that. We'll talk about that in a second, but I very first want to check out the GL liability section of this line on the bills. And notice over here that when we first opened this window, CHS, and when you set up the vendor, you entered that general liability was required. You put in an expiration date. So before, as this window was open, CHS popped up and said, this vendor's insurance is expired on this particular vendor, and do you want to deduct insurance from the vendor? And these fields open up for you in order to do that. And it will remember what general ledger account number from your chart of accounts you wanted to post this amount that you deducted from the vendor. And on the vendor setup screen, you can give it a percent that the insurance, your insurance company gave you that they might charge for that trade. And that'll drop in for you when you do that. And CHS will calculate based on the amount here how much to deduct for general liability. So in this case, a PO is selected, and that meant that the cost code, the job, the cost type, like turnkey, materials, labor, that is attached to the cost code dropped in. Based on the job, a certain general ledger account number from your chart of accounts for accounting did drop in because you told that job that you wanted it to go. In this case, it's something that's a work in progress GL number because we're doing this in progress. The vendor was set up to be for miscellaneous, so that dropped in, but you could change it if you needed. The markup percent is gotten from the budget based on the cost type because we're marking this cost to be marked up 25% for cost plus draws. And again, all of this was already filled in for you. You might change the invoice date and due date and the invoice number. Also down here, if there'd been a back charge on that PO, this would say yes, and you'd have another field over here showing that you're going to back charge. Or you could say yes right now, and then some other fields will open for you to select the vendor and how much you're back charging in. I'd like to show you that in this case, when we submitted it, we also had a second line here for change order type of PO that we selected. We're showing over budget, and I, on purpose, typed in $2,500 rather than $2,200. That was the cost that we estimated. I mean, the PO that we did for that change order. So when I submitted it, I got an alert that these things were going over budget. So I clicked on the over budget, and I can see what the original budget was, what the change order budget was, what POs were issued, etc., etc., and that no costs have been posted yet to this. I'm just now going to, so the unposted costs are $21,400 or $300 over. And that is because I typed in $2,500 rather than $2,200 for that change order budget. So you might decide to write a comment by using the comment bubble that people from the field who are approving these posted bills to pay can see. They'll see the comment bubble and what the bookkeeper wrote about being over by $300. There's another icon on this screen for uploading a copy of the bill if you like, and when people from the field are approving bills to pay, they can see a paperclip icon that indicates that there is a copy of the bill attached. So it's not as complicated as it looks. CHS is doing a bunch for you, also giving you tools to drill down on the current ECC, on purchase orders versus costs for this cost center, and so much more. So the person entering the bills can really become a hero to you and help you monitor for those overages. I suggest that bills go ahead and get entered because they can be deleted if the field rejects them or the big boss rejects them once they're reviewing them on screen, which is really a handy thing. And here's one of the screens that is used by the field to approve bills to pay. You can see an OK1 that's usually used by the project manager and OK2 here. And you can drill down on the ECC. Now that the bill has been posted, that same variance cost approval report, which shows your estimated cost at completion, the 300 that it's heading over, and the detail behind the bill so that they can see that. They can also see the POs again so they can get some information. And there's some paperclip icons showing that we have attached a copy of the bill so that you can review that, stop routing around all those stacks of bills, use the screen like this. For project managers, they will just see job costs that have been posted. They won't see all the overhead bills. Again, usually the project manager is doing the OK1 and the big boss is doing the OK2. The big boss can usually see all the overhead bills to do that on. Or you can use those check marks for anything that you like. Also notice that you see a darkened comment bubble here, which is, if you click on it, you can see the note that the bookkeeper wrote to you about this being over. So there's various tools. Again, this is a great screen. I didn't mention cost plus draw over here, which if it had been included on like that draw 3 that we had, you'd see a number 3 over here. 99 means it's not been on a draw yet. If it's been check marked that the draw has been funded, that 3 that would be over here, if this was on that draw, would be green. Otherwise, it would be red. That's just some other information from the back office to the field when they're approving things to pay or when the big boss is approving things to pay. Either way. So let's continue. One thing about all those vendors and trades is let's just stop digging through all the file cabinets for information about them. There are vendor ledgers with very powerful searches. In this case, you can see a quick search going on over here, or you can open a great big one that gives you all sorts of other search things like paid and unpaid and whether they've been on a draw or not, or the detail of a certain draw, all kinds of things. But over here, I just clicked to use the link for use minimum and maximum GL dates in my database because I knew I was going to drill down to one vendor and one job, so I didn't care about the date range, so I didn't have to type it in. And I click the button to open vendor ledgers and transactions, and I'll get a database that shows you paperclip icons and comments and everything else like we saw on that other screen for approving bills to pay. But real quickly, I'll show you one of the reports that's available based on my search. You can see the filters for the search down here. And you can see that this particular one is grouped by invoice number. There's ones that are grouped by cost code, job and then cost code. Ones that are grouped by certain other things, various other things, many reports. But again, let's just stop digging around in those file cabinets if you're about to have a meeting with one of those trades or suppliers about what you've paid them or not paid them if these areas are blank. So one more thing I'm going to take up your time with, but because it's such a big deal every year when you end up with insurance audit reports, we'll talk about the general liability one. I'm putting this right after the stuff about vendors and trades because this is another complexity that home builders are subject to, these insurance auditors. And I used to take weeks to do this. So here's why general liability insurance auditors have been known to say, oh, you have CHS? Good. Give me those reports and I'm out of here. Also, you do not have to create spreadsheets for this anymore. So let's take a quick look at the worksheet. First of all, you'll select your policy period dates here, paid dates from and to. And then you'll see all the bills for vendors that have been marked that general liability insurance is required and all the bills that were paid during the policy period and the detail of those. But I'd like to show you something. Notice here for JT's wallpaper, the paid date is March 22nd, 2016, because this is much old data I have. And their insurance liability actually had been entered that the expired date was way before that. So in this column, expired before paid date, you see all yeses, and I'll show you the results of that in a minute. But let's look at United Plumbing. First of all, the paid date is January 2016, but they didn't expire, even though they expired, that they did not expire when they paid it. They were still insured. So this first section is showing all of that. This first worksheet, you can drill down to things about it, call them up by drilling down on their vendor link, etc. But I'm going to show you the reports that you get that insurance liability auditor asks for. You'll notice that there's a section on this one that says currently uninsured. In other words, usually by the end of the day, uninsured. And that JT's amount that was paid is all over in an insured amount column, but United Plumbing is in an insured amount because they were paid before they expired. Then there's a section for all the insured ones, so it's all in the insured column. Then there's a section for underinsured ones. You actually tell the program what the amount that is required for your company for insurance, and when you set up the vendor, on the vendor setup window, you tell it how much liability they have, and this particular one didn't have enough. We require $1 million, they had $300,000, so they've got an amount in the uninsured amount, so you get a total, and all of those that are in the uninsured, CHS has done a calculation based on the insurance rate that the insurance company has given you and that you attach to the vendor, and it'll come up with an amount you might have to pay from this audit. Another report is one that's just grouped by job with that same kind of thing in it. It's just giving totals for the job. And another report is one that is grouping things. Remember when we were entering a bill, something dropped in called cost type. So that's that one place you enter that for that cost type. So you don't have to go do spreadsheets to figure out what they are again. And this is grouping and totaling these various amounts by vendor with their addresses, etc., by those various cost types that quite often that insurance auditor wants from you. So there you go. There's those great reports. Pretty quick, not days and days trying to get it together. If you keep up with marking that the vendor's insurance expirations and stuff. We can't do anything about that. You've got to enter that insurance dates. And one more thing about the people that you're paying for job costs is that you might have some of your employees that you're wanting to apply to job costs. So let's take a super quick glance at the window for entering payroll and how it is set up to apply a marked up amount of wages to job costs. When employees set up, defaults are attached that will drop in after you select a job on one of your record lines for payroll. So here's a job selected, and these various things dropped in and were calculated for you. Notice that over here, we're telling it the general ledger number for just regular wages, and we have the regular wages paid to the employee, but we selected a job, and a cost code assigned to the employee dropped in. I think this is superintendent's wages. You could change that. And all of this stuff dropped in because you set it up for the employee that you want to mark him up by 15%, his wages, what general ledger account number you want to post those job costs to. This is a work in progress. And since it's accounting, we're going to need, this is going to be a separate little set of entries from the payroll entries where we're putting it to job costs and we are crediting some other account, which I usually suggest to be a contra account on your chart of accounts right underneath your wages account over here. So that you can see how much you've sent out to job costs. And this is a higher amount because it's marked up. And that's what will show up on job cost reports or cost plus draw requests, etc. Hopefully you can get a quick idea of that and how CHS is smart. When you post it, CHS is going to take care of all the accounting entries behind this for your books. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. So let's just quickly review more complexities that are related just to posting job costs. For one thing, most bankers require, or lenders require, waivers of lien from trades and suppliers with info about checks they have paid. Often this means that the bookkeeper gets involved because it happens before they get their check. So I'm not going to show you, but CHS has some great screens for showing all those bills the amounts paid, the checks paid to suppliers for certain jobs, and creating waivers of lien, and you can set up styles, etc., for those waivers of lien based on what your state requires. Another complexity is, of course, that you have to send 1099s to all the trades, the subcontractors and trades. At the end of the year for the IRS, CHS has great tools. First of all, a worksheet that shows you what information might be missing for things that will be included on 1099s, and then they do print. We do print on your 1099 forms for you. Home builders also like to use credit cards a lot to pay for a lot of their job costs because they can get mileage or other advantages from doing so. However, the bookkeeper still needs to track how much is paid to each supplier or the trade, like Joe the plumber, for each job by the credit card, because you've got to do those 1099s and waivers of lien or insurance audit reports by vendor. So you post it to Joe the plumber, you post your bills like we saw to Joe the plumber, and then CHS has a tool to mark that as paid by credit card, and you select credit cards that you set up, and CHS takes care of starting a credit card ledger for you for those receipts, etc., from credit cards. And then you can go just pay one big amount to the credit card vendor itself, like American Express or whatever, because you've already posted all the job costs to the vendors themselves this way. So there's great tools for that, which I won't show you. Sometimes the home buyer pays for the supplier directly for job costs, or somebody else does. And that creates a complex issue for accounting, because the home builder still needs to track those job costs for the job and give the home buyer credit for paying them. We do that with something called you enter the bill and then you post it as paid by voucher. CHS makes entries to put that to job costs and another entry to apply those as revenues from the home buyer, all in one fell swoop type thing for your various reports. So I just wanted to mention those further complexities before we get on to one of the big major master screens that you're on every day that has to do with seeing what your variances and those estimated costs at completion are. This window that I'm showing you here is from the owner dashboard, where it's showing quickly the original budget for each of your open jobs, the change order estimated costs, because this is about your costs, adds those together for total budget, shows the total of the purchase order, shows the total of actual costs posted so far, and what CHS is saying your estimated cost at completion is today, and how much you might be headed over budget. You can drill down on every one of these things, but let's go to the worksheet itself where it's doing the ECC by cost center. Now this is a great big thing that can look a little bit overwhelming, but it is just basically the budget for each cost center, the change orders, total budgets, total POs, actual costs posted. And the ECC is calculated by CHS, first of all. When you originally just do the budget, that'll be the ECC. As you get change order costs in, the ECC will change for that. When you issue purchase orders, if they're higher than this total budget, suddenly your ECC becomes that. If your actual costs become higher, the ECC becomes that. If they're lower and you check mark them as done, as in this case, they're lower than your budget and your POs, we check mark these as done, which means the ECC became that. And there's one more tool for the builder to actually click a pencil and type in a revision, something they know about. Maybe down here on this one that doesn't have actual costs, they know it's now going to be $2,000 instead of $1,900 for the PO. So they type in 2,000, the ECC becomes that. They can also type notes about why they did that. There's powerful tools on this screen. If you're wondering, it's going to show the overage over budget. If you're wondering why, you can drill down and see notes from all over the field, the bookkeepers, everywhere else, about this particular cost. And another great thing, and so see how as you progress, you can see how much you're heading over budget. This is very different than just doing a budget versus actual cost, because that does not really mean anything until the end of the job, because you may not have all your actual costs in yet. Another very powerful thing is it's also detecting this actual cost column here shows both paid and unpaid bills that have been entered for job costs. So over here it shows how much of those bills have been paid. Over here, for example, this is $44,875, and $40,000 instead of $44 has been paid. So there's still an outstanding amount to pay. And this is the ECC minus the amount paid. So that's pretty cool that you can see that. So let's take a look at a couple of the reports. There's several that you can get about the ECC information. This first one is a report that shows all of your cost centers and any budget notes that have been written about this on it, and it's grouped by permits and fees. This is a batch of cost centers for that and their totals. And this report, and then of course it all totals up at the bottom. This report is a summary report by those groups. So here's your permits and fees on one line, your next group on the next line, etc. And a couple of more reports from the ECC is the variance. You've seen sections of this variance cost approval went over there on the screens to approve bills, but it shows the ECC line, and it shows actually, if you see the costs here, it shows the detail of the costs, whether they've been paid or unpaid. It total up those costs. So it's kind of like a Bible report showing all the ECC and actual costs being posted. And here is a report of those outstanding unpaid costs. It actually is figuring out a percent complete, which you could type in yourself if you want, and coming up with the outstanding unpaid for what is completed and the outstanding paid to completion. In the bottom of the report totals all that up and gives you some of those profit calculations based on profit type with the revised price, and a little bit it's showing about how much revenues have been received, how much is outstanding to pay, how much you're still expecting to receive, etc. So, moving on, those actual posted costs. When you drill down on all the actual posted costs, maybe say for one job, you can drill down and search for just for one vendor, for only paid, for one cost code, one cost center, all kinds of things. To open the big actual job cost database, again, you can see the same things, drill down on things about these various costs, and then you can get some great reports. I just want to show you this real quickly. You can pause it, but there's all kinds of ways to print reports, and so you'll see buttons for various kinds of ways, by job, and then draw numbers, so you're grouping all the draw numbers together, or by month, by job, and then by how much each month, or who knows what, various summaries. Here's the basic actual job cost detail report by group, then cost code, and all the detail of the bills. And of course it totals itself at the bottom. Here's a group summary of all the actual costs just grouped by those group headers. Here's one that's a summary, but it has the groups and just the cost centers and their totals without the detail of the bills. I'd like to mention that there is a screen in CHS that's called the dashboard for one job. And of course, when you open it, you will select which job you're interested in. You'll see what builders and other people are assigned to this job, some detail. But all of these links go to various places for that job, like the budget worksheet for the job that we saw, the estimated cost of completion, add new purchase orders for the job. Go to that purchase orders management list we saw. One great tool is you can get a list of all vendors to use based on POs with their names and addresses. You can get file labels for those. You can also get a list of vendors used with what you paid them or without what you paid them. You know that sometimes people are asking you for that at the end of the job. It will give the vendor, this is based on actual costs you posted with their names and addresses. And I'll let you pause and study on the various other things that you can get to for one job from here. Okay, we're just not quite done with those complexities yet, and I'll try to do this as fast as possible. But another one is that home builders receive a closing HUD statement from the title company that calculates the closing deposit amount. Posting that deposit can include several lines of accounting records for paying off a loan and recognizing job costs at the same time, like title policies, etc. And home builders, another complexity is that they can elect to use different methods of accounting to recognize their net income from a job. The most recommended one, which we'll take a peek at in a minute, is percentage of completion, and it is not a simple thing to do each month. You might also have Builder 20 clubs asking for percentage of completion reports. So I'll show you how CHS handles that. Another method for doing your tax return, etc., is the completed contract method. Either way, you must know how much is in each account on your chart of accounts from accounting for each job in order to do a journal entry to close that job on your books. So first, I want to show you real quickly on the window where you're posting deposit or monies received how active CHS is with giving you help information about those complex things. For one thing, what if you take a lot draw that you don't get any money for? And I'm explaining how to handle that on the deposit window, actually, as a zero deposit. And there's videos about those posting that closing deposit I mentioned and then closing the job. When you do deposits, first of all, your accountant can help you by helping you set up some deposit categories, we call them, that will group revenues received from home buyers by those deposit categories, but will also let you put in default general ledger accounts from your chart of accounts. Like you say to the accountant, when I get in change order money, what account on my chart of accounts should I post it to? You set it up right here, so when you're entering a deposit and you select change order as the deposit category, the GL will drop in for you. Here's a simple window of posting a deposit entry where we're paying for a change order. So we selected change order. When we selected the payor, the job dropped in because we attached the payor to the job. And when you select the change order that they're paying for, the remaining balance will drop in, which you can change, but also this category. Then we were posting some part of an interim draw. Part of that interim draw was for a change order. And when we selected interim draw, the GL number dropped in for us, and it all totaled up, and we posted it. Now, I'd like to real quickly just zoom in and show you a little bit of help that I give you in my help documents for a job closing deposit. Mostly I'm showing you an example of HUD papers, how to look and see what interest might have been included when they paid off the loan, and having you compare to a trial balance for a job and maybe the contract balance due report. And I'm explaining all of that because when you enter a deposit in CHS from that HUD closing statement, you're going to end up recognizing your sales price, paying off interim draws, paying off, taking it out of change orders and this and that and putting it all up into a price. And then you have those various title policies, this and that you might want to post to job costs. So when you select the deposit category of job costs, CHS opens other windows for you to be able to select the cost code. Markup will drop in for you based on that cost code from the budget, and cost type will drop in based on that cost code, but you could change it. So these will all show up on job cost reports, and then you post that closing deposit. Speaking of job closings, once you posted that deposit, I always ended up having to run around figuring out how much was in different accounts in order to post a journal entry to do a job closing in my accounting books and go ahead and recognize the sales and cost of sales on my income statement, take them out of work in progress. So I created a window that lets you select a job, the closing entry date, click to continue to the closing window, and it's gone out and gathered all of your balances for that job that are in balance sheet accounts, because those are the ones that you're going to be wanting to create a journal entry by clicking that and then telling it that you want to send this amount to cost of sales, create the journal entry, click maybe this one for change orders, which probably would have rolled up into something. But anyway, this job, we haven't done actually really posted the closing deposit for this job I selected. But anyway, you can get the concept behind that and how you don't have to go scrambling around trying to figure out what numbers you're needing. And CHS will create all of these as one big journal entry that actually gets everything moved to your income statement. And another very powerful tool for the CPAs, which will save lots of time that should not be overlooked in CHS, is something that's called a trial balance by the general ledger account, then by the job. So you'll see all of your general ledger accounts, but let's look at that 1430, which is a work in progress. on the NAHB chart of accounts, which you can load the NAHB one chart of accounts. Like your cost codes, you can load the NAHB chart of accounts and then edit them as needed for you or set them up from scratch. So I'm just using an example from NAHB. But what's cool about this is it's showing you how much is in this account for each job. And I suggest that the bookkeeper reviews this every month to see if you have things lurking that you didn't get closed out of work in progress. But the CPAs are always wanting to know how much is in these general ledger accounts for each job. So that's a really powerful tool. And you can get a report like this that you could give to the CPA for all those accounts and how much are in them for each job. Back on that screen, by the way, you could have drilled down to the detail behind what's in those accounts. Let's quickly, before you just go, let's look at the percentage of completion method of accounting that your Builder 20 clubs might be demanding from you. Other lenders like to see percentage of completion. And what that is, it's highly recommended by construction consultants because it recognizes revenues earned and costs incurred for your jobs on your income statement every month instead of just when the contract is completed. Figuring out how much has been earned for each job can be a time-consuming and tedious job if you do not have CHS. In CHS, not only can you click a button and get the report shown below, which is one of those reports that other builders have asked about, where did you get that report? You can also use CHS tools to create journal entries needed to post the percentage of completion. So this is basically the same thing that's on the report, showing the current period cost, prior period costs, coming up with how much you earned based on the percent complete, putting that in the revenue earned. And if you have ever done anything with percentage of completion, I won't go all into it because I actually have extensive help about this. But you can click a button to create a journal entry, select which accounts you're sending your revenues to, your earned revenues to, and your costs to, and have that just done for you. I actually did every month spend probably several days trying to come up with percentage of completion for each job. So there's another powerful tool and reason CHS is special. And remember that CHS is an accounting program, so of course it has financial statements and reports. In the accounting section, you click this button, you get a menu for balance sheets, trial balances, income statements, and comparison financial statements. Here's an example of a balance sheet, basic balance sheet. I think I stretched it a little bit. We don't have to go into the detail for that, just know that it's there. Over here is a trial balance for one job, which is basically the little balance sheet for just one job. Here's a period trial balance where you select a period, it gives you balance forward, how much has changed for each account. Income statements and income statements compared to financial budgets. This is a basic income statement going on. You can set up financial budgets where you spread some job costs over the months, and you can get spreadsheets of that for every month, January to December. But here's an income statement based on a financial budget you set up for things like maybe office supplies and this and that for a future year. And you're comparing your income statement to that financial budget. Here's a comparative income statement where you select two different periods. In this case, we selected periods for 2 different years. And you can see period 1 and period 2 and what the difference is between them. And there's powerful general ledger searches and reports. Here's a quick search for the general ledger by vendors, jobs, by this and that, and various other reports. You open a big database, you can see all kinds of information, but from there, here's a basic general ledger of accounting transactions. Here's a general ledger of accounting transactions. This one's just grouped by the GL account and then by date, just shows the detail by date. This one has all the GL accounts, but then groups everything by month. This can be a really handy one for figuring out numbers for next year for that financial budget. So, I think I'll stop. That's probably enough. If I haven't convinced you now, then I don't know how to show you how special CHS is for handling all of those complex things. You can pause it, to see a few other things that I could have gone over, but I've chosen not to in the interest of time. And let's just finish this up. CHS is smart about all of the things that I just told you about. It is designed specifically to give you the tools to handle all of those complexities without creating the spreadsheets, without routing around stacks of bills to be cost coded or approved for payment, and without multiple checking accounts for every job. One of CHS's major strengths is that it's designed by a person with an accounting degree, which happens to be me, who has years of experience in the back offices of home builders. There are extensive help documents, videos, and tools that not only teach you how to use CHS, but they also include things that I think are educational about all of the mind-boggling things we just went over that can teach you some about handling accounting in the home building industry. And I'm very good about letting you know in CHS that you're about to do something that might mess up your books. Say, for example, you try to delete a bill that was included on a draw request, which could actually sort of mess up that whole prior drawn thing and current drawn things and blow the home buyer's mind. So I pop up and tell you, here's another way to do that, to handle that. Things like that. All kinds of alerts I'll give you about if your books are closed or if they're not, or if it's you way out of your current accounting period date, or who knows what. So finally, if you'd like to see more detail about the features in more detail, I actually have videos that are like a seminar that you might come to for a whole day, training and showing. Plus, on beyond that, which you don't have to look at now, on screen, I really have detailed videos about how to handle that screen. But if you'd like to continue, you can stay and the playlist will continue to play. Or of course, you can come back since you're probably exhausted from this video and take a look at that video seminar for more information, or look at our page about demos and features that give you sample reports that you can just open without looking at videos and information about all the features. And if you're ready to get started with CHS, use the sign up button on our website that is a link. It says or link on here, but it's on link. When we receive your payment, we will set you up within a day and send you your login information, and we look very much forward to working with you and helping you get all of these complexities handled in more of a way than if you use some generic accounting software. And you have a great day, and take a break from videos.